Here we're looking at example 14 from our 31327 set of notes. We're asked, which is the better deal when you're renting a vehicle for a day? Now we have Rent-A-Car, which is charging $29.95 for the day and 43 cents for however many miles you go. Enterprise, though, is charging $45 for the day plus 32 cents per mile. Now, in just looking at the two different companies, you're only renting the vehicle for a day, but we notice that Rent-A-Car is charging less money per day, but more money per mile, whereas Enterprise is charging more money per the day, but less per mile. And so the goal then is to try and figure out which one's going to be your better value for depending on what your needs are. Now, we're going to go ahead and let M be the total miles driven for that vehicle on that day, and then C is the total cost for each company. So when we're looking at Rent-A-Car, we'll label him as red. We know that the total cost is going to come out to be the $29.95 for the day, plus however much money it is per mile that we end up going. So 0.43 cents per however many miles we end up driving. Enterprise, on the other hand, this total cost is going to be $45 for the day plus 32 cents for however many miles you drive. And now we have to go ahead and try and solve for M and what is that total cost. There are a couple ways that we can go ahead and proceed with this. It looks like since C is already solved for in both equations that we can go ahead then and just substitute essentially this piece, which we know is equal to C, into our other equation for C, which would be right here. So when we do that, we have 45 plus 0.32 M is equal to 29.95 plus 0.43 M. Subtracting this 29 from both sides, 95. We end up then with, looks like 1505 plus 0.32 M is equal to our 0.43 M. And now just subtracting over this 0.32 M on both sides to get all the M's on the other. We then end up with 15.05 is equal to, looks like 0.11 M. And now just dividing both sides by 0.11. And we see that M comes out to be 136.82 miles when you round that. So it's about 136.82 miles. Now what we're going to do is go ahead and throw that into one of our two equations. Again, it doesn't really matter which one, as long as you just throw it into one of these. We'll go ahead and throw it in the green one because it's usually a little bit less decimals, as you can see. So we end up then with the cost is equal to 45 plus 0.32 times 100, let's say it was 130, yep, 136.82. And then we end up with the cost is equal to 45 plus, this comes out to be about 43.78. And then as a result, your total cost would then be about, looks like 88.78. In your calculator, you should have actually just left this as that one, it should be 0.81818181, and then multiply it by 0.32. I was just kind of showing this so that we weren't writing out the entire thing. But in your calculator, you would just actually multiply that value by 0.32. Okay, to then get a more exact answer. But even in the calculator, you should have ended up with something like this. Now that we have our total cost, we know our point comes out to be 136.82 miles, comma, and our cost for that would be $88.78. So graphically, what's going on here is we have two lines. Let's see here. We'd have a line doing something like this for the red one, because it has a steeper slope, and our green one, though, has a larger y-intercept, but not as much of a steep slope. And we're crossing specifically at some point. Here is that point that we just found. So at 136 miles and $88.78, we're going to see where maybe one line is better than another. Now, again, with our red function, that being Rent-A-Car, we had a less y-intercept, but a higher slope. And that's representing in this situation with the red line. Whereas Enterprise had a larger y-intercept, but a smaller slope, represented as this line. So if you're trying to figure out which company to necessarily go with, depending on how far you're going to be going in that day, Rent-A-Car might actually be your better option, because if you're going less than 136 miles, it looks like you'd be spending less money, because this axis again means miles. This one's going to be your costs, and we care about the costs. Now, again, if you're driving less than 136 miles, it looks like Rent-A-Car would be your option to go with, because you're spending less money there. Whereas if you're going over 136 miles, then you see, oh, wait a minute, maybe now Enterprise might be the better deal because I'm spending less money. And that's pretty much your solution to this, is Rent-A-Car would be the better option if you are driving less than 136.82 miles. After this, Enterprise would be your better deal. But again, though, that is example 14 from our 3-1-3-2 set of notes.